What's shaking, my friends? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Shay, and today I have my mid-month wrap-up for you guys. So you may be thinking, why am I doing a mid-month wrap-up in February? And friends, it is because I have read like crazy this month. I had no clue I was going to do this, but it's all thanks to my book club. I am in this book club that is run by Jacqueline over at the channel Jacqueline. I will link her channel below. It is super a lot of fun, and this month we had a team challenge going on, and of course I'm very competitive, so I read like crazy. And so I have to do a mid-month wrap-up or else I will forget everything I have read. And my end of the month wrap-up would be like 5 hours long. So who wants that? Not me. So I'm going to start out with the romance. So I will leave a timestamp down below of where you can skip to the non-romance section. I have read a lot of romance. They're fast, they're quick, they're easy. And however, I am just about burnt out on the romance. So I don't think I'll be reading that much in the months to come. So this is all the romance I have to offer now. So the first book I read in the month of February was Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This was one of my anticipated releases. It did come out in January. This follows our main character, Kenna, who has spent about the last 5 years or so in prison for something that she did. I'm not going to say it because it's a spoiler, but she had a daughter shortly after she went to prison, and she lost parental rights to that daughter, and when she gets out of prison, she is now looking to have some sort of relationship with her daughter. However, the family that got custody of him is not having it. So we have this bar owner, Ledger, who is in the picture, and there's a love story there, and there is some drama, of course, all that kind of stuff. I don't want to say too much without spoiling it. It's just an emotional Colleen Hoover book, as always. However, I gave this one 3 stars because I didn't care for the insta-love factor, which I thought was very prominent in this book. I started puking like right immediately after he sees her from across the bar, and she's just wonderful and fantastic, and all of a sudden he's in love with her, and just by looking at her, and that was puke. And also this story and the way it unfolded, and I can't say too much without spoiling it, but it wrapped up too easily and too neatly for me, and it was fine, but it was definitely not one of her better works. The next book I read was The Roughest Draft, which was also one of my anticipated January releases, and this is by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca, and this one I gave 3 stars to as well. This follows our couple who they are a writing duo. They met back in like a writer's workshop, and they formed this bond, and they wrote a novel together, and this novel was best-selling novel, and something happens, you know that something happens where they basically become enemies, and then they still have a contract to write 1 book. So years later, when they've moved on with their lives and they haven't talked to each other in years, and both of their writing careers are kind of struggling, they are made to come back together to write a novel, and that it goes from there. So I had issues with this. Any kind of cheating is cheating, whether it be emotional or physical, and I feel like this, I did not like that portion of the book. I can't give a lot away because of spoilers. Romance books are so hard to talk about without spoilers. But there is, I didn't like jive with the fact that they just went their separate ways and never talked to each other for years. Like, I didn't jive with that. But if it's something you might like, you might like. I also just really got annoyed with the main character. So the next romance book I read was If This Gets Out by Sophie Gonzalez and Kiel Dietrich. This is a young adult LGBTQ plus novel that follows our 2 main characters. I don't remember their names, But they are in this band Saturday, and they have blown up. And one of them, his name is Ruben. I can't remember the boy's name, but one of them, Ruben, is gay. His bandmates know that he is gay, and but the world does not know that he's gay because the management team won't let him come out because they are scared that it will lose them a lot of money. And so anyway, he ends up falling in love with one of his bandmates, and his bandmates realizes that he's not exactly straight, that he's bisexual, and it's their kind of romance. And so it explores lots of different topics though, because there is some drug addiction going on with some other bandmates. So we have this addiction plot line, and we also have this bisexual coming out plot line. And so I enjoyed it a lot. It was very slow paced though. I still gave it 3 stars. I thought the writing was excellent, but I would recommend it for anybody who may like a story like this. I'm just, again, not the target audience. I'm not a YA romance reader, but I really did appreciate the addiction aspects and the different dynamics with the 2 boys that were coming out. To not only themselves and their families, but to the public. So I enjoyed that. The next book I read was a long anticipated release. It's coming out this month in February, and that's going to be Full Flight by Ashley Schumacher. And this book gutted me. Ashley Schumacher has a very distinct way with words. Her prose is beautiful. Like, if you don't like flowery writing, I wouldn't say to normally pick her up, but her prose is so beautiful. And this follows our main character, who's basically 16 years old, and she's falling in love for the first time. And she's falling in love with this boy that everybody in the town thinks is this bad, misbehaved boy, but they have it all wrong. They don't really know him. They are making judgments based off of one incident, and it is her love story. It is her falling in love for the first time, and then something tragic happens, and that's the end of that. I can't spoil it. I mean, granted, if you read the synopsis of the book, you can kind of guess what happens, but I can't remember the last book that I sobbed while reading, and this book I sobbed while I was reading it. So was it some fantastic, amazing story, love story? No. The love story wasn't really what got me. I really enjoyed just the journey of this book, from watching her fall in love and going through the whole thing of love and loss and all of that. It was beautiful. I gave it 4 stars. The next romance book I read was The Wedding Game by Megan Quinn. I adore Megan Quinn. I love her rom-coms. I think she's excellent. However, this one, I gave 3 stars. This follows our 2 characters. They're basically competing in this wedding game competition. So it's like this reality competition. She is helping her brother and his soon-to-be husband try to win a free wedding in a condo, and he is helping his brother and soon-to-be pregnant wife trying to win a free wedding in a condo. So they're competing against each other, and they don't like each other from the start, and it goes from there as we're going through this reality show competition. I thought it was fine. I didn't really care for the romance that much. I didn't really gather the chemistry. I thought, though, Megan Quinn's humor was right on point. There were points of this novel where I completely laughed out loud. I thought it was great. The banter, the funniness, I just didn't jive with their romance as well, so I gave it 3 stars. The next book was one that I really anticipated a lot, and that was going to be The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. If you don't know me, I love Abby Jimenez. I read both the Happy Ever After playlist and Life's Too Short, and gave them both 5 stars. And this is the actual first book in the series, and let me tell you. So there were a few things, again, in this book. This is my least favorite book. I gave it 3 stars. I overall enjoyed the romance. I think she is a great author at writing chemistry. I really, really do. I believe in their romance. I trust in their romance. But this one just had a little bit too much of things I didn't like. So one, again, is the cheating aspect. It's regardless of whether you're physically cheating or you're emotionally cheating, there's a cheating aspect, and I'm not into that. And the second one is it deals with infertility, and I've heard from multiple people that have infertility themselves that they think that this is poorly done. And so I'm going to agree with them with that, because if you're going to tackle infertility, I think you should do it in a different way. But overall, I really did agree with this romance. I found it very believable, but this is not the book that I would recommend to start with her. I would recommend the other two. And the last romance book I have read this month so far is The Relationship Pact by Adriana Locke. I gave it 3 stars. This follows characters who basically are fake dating, and that's all I'll say about it. I just thought it was fine. I didn't really jive with the romance there either. It was unbelievable. I've heard a lot of buzz about this book. I feel like everybody I know has given it 5 stars, but not me. I just didn't. I found myself actually, while I was reading it, kind of skimming through, and that's the point where you know that I'm not really enjoying the book. And now we are going to move on to something other than romance. One of the first books I actually read this month was I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. And if you don't know what this is a true crime book about the Golden State Killer. So basically, if I'm sure a lot of y'all have heard this story, Patton Oswalt was married to Michelle McNamara, and she died tragically before the Golden State Killer came to be caught. And she had already written some of her novel, so like half the book is her actual words, and then the other is other people filling in for her. But she tragically died, and it's so interesting because in the novel, in her words, when she's writing, she likens like being obsessed with true crime as she was, like trying to solve the case, as being like obsessed as a serial killer with murdering people, which is so interesting because Michelle McNamara tragically died because she was obsessed with this case and obsessed with other things, and she had a mixture of pills and all that kind of stuff in her system. The speculation, I don't know, but it's tragic that she died before the Golden State Killer came to be. And when she had several theories of who it was going to end up being, and honestly, it turned out to be a guy that really wasn't on anybody's radar. So that is so interesting, and the whole thing was interesting. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I think I will read more true crime in the future. So I finally did it. So I gave this one 3 stars. Unfortunately, me and V. Schwab's writing don't really mesh that well, but this follows our main character, Kel, and basically there are 4 Londons, and he can travel back and forth to 3 of them, and there's a stone, and people are after him once they figure out he has the stone, and there's a bunch of plots I cannot go into, but I really like the characters in this, but I just didn't care for the plot that much. I felt like it was a plot that has been overdone 5,000 times, but I liked the characters enough to continue on. So I think I will try the second book, and depending on how the second book goes, whether I'll move on to the third or not. The next fantasy book I read, just since we're going into fantasy, is going to be, I finally also read The Nemesis by S.J. Kincaid. I gave this 4.5 stars. I could not give it a 5-star because of some things that happened in here, but I did give it a 4.5. I absolutely, again, love the series. If you stopped reading after the second book, shame on you. You should have read this. Fantastic. Again, another book that had me tearing up. I didn't cry quite as much as I did in my romance book, but I did tear up on this, not once but twice. And y'all, this is an underrated series. I highly recommend, especially if you like politics, because that's all this book is about, is politics. And I enjoyed it, and I can't say much because this is the 3rd and final book of a series. So, but highly recommend. Go read this. The next book I read was another anticipated release of mine in February, and that's going to be Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. Y'all, I loved this book. Like, For the first 50%, it was 5 stars, and then it takes a turn, which I didn't really expect, so I wound up giving it 4 stars, but I still overall really enjoyed this book. This is a sci-fi horror, which follows basically our crew of people that they're about to be disbanded, not because they're not making any money, just the company, they're splitting up the team to do other things, and our main character is going to be sent back to Earth, and she's not happy about it, but she's going to be sent back to Earth, and she does not wish to do this. She wants to stay in space and do kind of things, and so they are on their last kind of mission, and they receive a ping and like a distress signal, and so they're like, where is the distress signal? Let's go check it out before we go back. And so they find this ship that's supposedly been missing for 20 years, and so they're like, well, we can just go and set ourselves up for life. We can go on the ship, we can get something off of it just to prove that, you know, we've been here, we were the ones that found it, and then we'll be rich and all that kind of stuff. But when they go onto the ship, there are some things that immediately start to happen that is kind of freaky, and I'm just saying, you should read it. I loved it. I didn't necessarily love the end and the explanation behind everything, as I don't always, that's why I don't really enjoy horror as a genre, but I loved it. I love the characters. I really did like it, and I think a lot of other people will too. I gave it 4 stars. And the last book I read was a cozy mystery that I tried this month, and it was Beaches, Bungalows, and Burglaries by Tanya Capps. I'm not sure how you say her name. But this was just like this. Our main character is married to this man. He's 61 and she's 30, and surprise, surprise, they're rich, and basically he has some kind of Ponzi scheme, and he's going to jail, and she loses everything, and all she gets is this camper in this campground that is in her name that is run down. So the camper's run down and the campground's run down, and then some things happen. There's a dead body that shows up, and they're going to have to figure out what's going on and all this kind of jazz. And I gave it 3 stars. It was just fine. I'm not really a cozy mystery person, so that could be partially, but it was short, and so I was able to get through it. So can't recommend it, but if you like a cozy mystery, maybe you'll like it. Okay, so that was, I believe, 12 things I just talked about. So, and it's only February the 13th, which is absolutely blows my mind. So I have been reading a lot of audio this month, which is what has got me reading a lot. So I am going to go read some more, and I hope you guys are having a great reading month as well, and I will catch you guys later.